there. I thought it'd be nice to show you this little technique of making a cathedral window. I absolutely love this little technique. It's quite therapeutic. You can make them sitting in front of the TV or just chatting with friends when we're allowed to. But this is a cathedral window. Can you see? Now on this one, this is a storage box. I've got this on each side. On the bottom, I haven't done it, and that's the lining. So that's one way that you can use it. This is another one that I've made. You see this? Haven't got it on the bottom. It's got one in there. Okay, that's another one. This is a large one to show you. Okay, so that would go in the middle of maybe a cushion cover or a table runner or whatever you want, really. So that was a large one I did just really for a demonstration that I did for a workshop. So this is a mixture of hand sewing and machine sewing. Okay, so I'll explain that in a little while. Okay, and this is a little exemplar I made to show how you can put the cathedral windows together. Now, some people actually make these to make quilts, even king size quilts, and you can just sit there of an evening making up loads of these little cathedral windows, and then when you've got your piles of them, sew them together or attach them with the sashing, depending on what design you want, really. Sort of looks quite nice that way as well. Anyway, if I just show you as best I can how to make, this is how I make them. Other people may do it slightly different. You know, I can only show you what I know, and this works for me. So you can make them sort of any size you want. So you can make them sort of this size up to massive. I've got a piece of fabric here. Now this fabric, it measures 9-inch square. And this is the size usually I use for showing people how to make these, because the smaller they are, it's sort of quite fiddly, so it's a bit easier on the larger square. So it has to be square. You'll fold your fabric in half, corner to corner. You need to be sort of accurate for this. So, and you just pinch on the edges there, not right across. You don't want a seam going right across. So you pinch on the edges. Then turn it over, do exactly the same there. Okay, so now you've got a marker for the middle of each side. Then what you're going to do, using either a soluble pen or your gel pen or whatever you want to use, and you'll measure 1 inch from the edge. Turn it round, 1 inch from the edge. 1 inch from the edge, and you'll do that on each side. I'll hold this up to show you. This bit can get a bit confusing, but can you see? So going from left to right, 1 inch from left to right. Okay, so when you've done that, you've got your 4 marks on each edge, and you've got your pinchy bits. So this is the bit that you might get a bit lost, so watch carefully. So you'll pick up that pinch and that, bring it over to that mark that you made, put a pin in there to hold it, bring it up on that side, bring it over to hold it. It's going to look a bit messy at this stage, don't worry about that. Bring it up, over, put a pin in. Okay, and the last one, keeping it nice and straight. You'll know if it's straight by the seam along here. So making sure it's all nice and straight. Put it in there, a pin there. So it looks a bit messy. Okay, so then what you'll do is from your pin sides, gently tug it till it looks like this little mound in the middle. Can you see that? Okay, and then when you're satisfied that that's nice and straight, yeah, just make sure your lines are nice and straight, you just pat it. You pat it in the middle. Okay, This is really good to practice on with calico, because calico you can just sort of finger press and it will do whatever you want. This is 100% cotton that I'm using here. So this is what it's going to look like, okay? And that's the back. All right, so the next stage is you're going to cut a bit of fabric out that's just a little bit smaller than that middle square in the middle. So think about what colours you're going to use, because you're going to be stitching along these edges here. I've got another piece here to show you how to do that. So I've chosen some denim, a little bit of off-cutter denim, so not as big as the actual square. You want it a little bit smaller, and it'll make sense in a minute why you want it a little bit smaller. So once you've chosen the colour fabric that you want in the middle, you're going to think about the thread you're going to use for stitching down here. You see that? So on this one, because I've got pinky purpley colours and green in there, I could have chosen any one of those colours. So I picked out a sort of a deep pink to go on that edge, and that's just a running stitch along there, nice and neat, just going up to that corner, if you see that. Okay, you don't want to go any more than that. That's what it looks like on the back. Okay, so once you've stitched all the way along here on each of those 4 folds, take your pins out. And here's the fun part here. So then, to make this little window here, so you don't see any raw edges, you are going to fold over your first edge. Now I'll just pin that to show you what that looks like. Can you see that? Yep. You're going to hand stitch that, just tiny little stitches all the way along it. Now some people like to machine it. Now I've done both. On this one here, I've actually machined mine down because it's quite big and it was easier to do. I've actually machined on this one because they're quite big pieces. On this one, it's hand stitched, tiny little stitches. Now you can make a feature of that if you want to. You can hand stitch it using a contrast colour, so you know, if you want it to show, make it look like it's deliberately showing. Other than that, you want your stitches to be quite small and just catch in so that you can't see them. So when you've hand stitched that one, you will bring over your next one, tuck in any little raw edges there because you don't want to see any of those, and that's how the next one will look. You can see, so there's your first one, your second one, so you'll hand stitch that, and then you'll come over to the next one, turn that over. So you don't even have to use your iron whilst you're doing this. Wonderful. There you go, there's all 3 edges. Okay, obviously we haven't got the stitching on this yet, just show you how to do that. And then on that very last one, tucking it over. And if you find that little bit of square of fabric that you've cut to put in the middle is a little bit too big, you can actually trim it as you go along and think, oh, I'll nip a bit off of that. And if you don't want to pin it in the middle, you can use a bit of Bonder web. If you've got any Bonder web, just put a tiny little square of Bonder web in there, and that'll hold that in place, save having another pin there. So looks a little bit messy at the moment because obviously I haven't stitched it as I've gone along, but that's how that'll look. So you just turn it over. Okay, so I hope that you feel inspired to do that. It's such a fun project, this, actually. Yeah, I absolutely love them. There is another technique called Secret Garden, which if you're interested in the Secret Garden, I can show you that in another demonstration, because that's the same-ish sort of pattern, but a slightly different technique for constructing. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Love to see some of your cathedral windows if you're going to have a go. So thank you for watching.